Ray, good to see you. Thank you for
Well,
making a bit of time. I
thank you
appreciate
very
that.
much for having me.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, because we've had good discussions in the past, so I'm really looking forward to it. So, Ray, I wanted to start off by something that really intrigued me when we were last talking. You said to me when we were talking about you and your business and what you're trying to achieve, you said, "I just want to make people happy." Now, I don't think I've ever had a business person say that to me so directly. Why does, I mean, what do you mean by that? Why is it important to you? And why is it such a thing for you personally?
Yeah, the I think that word happy is subjective, but for me it's about helping people feel better, right? Just in general, understanding where they are versus where they came from versus where they want to go. So, for me, I'll be 52 this October, and I spent the better part of my life undoing all the programming that I grew up with, right? So at some point in my life, I realized that the way I am was a product of my programming. Okay, now I have to go and undo that. So, spending years in developing self awareness and learning and understanding why I make decisions the way I make them, what I'm looking for in relationships, in people, why I react or respond to things a certain way. I realized that I was just completely out of alignment with who I am and who I was because I was too busy living everybody else's life
Okay.
based upon what society thought or what my parents thought or what my circle of friends or siblings thought. And the gift that COVID gave me was I got crushed. I lost everything. It was beyond the word massive reset. I'm still rebuilding from that, but it gave me the ability to take a step back
Mm.
and gain perspective. And I realized that I just wanted to start completely over and I wanted to build something new. And when I say I want to build something new, I don't just mean a new business. I mean a new fitness structure for my mental, emotional, and physical health. I mean a new family structure for how I allocate time and attention to my kids, my wife, my friends, and to my finances, to really getting clear on what my goals were and the businesses that I wanted to build to generate income and impact with what I'm doing. And part of that for me, the reason why I say I want people to feel better is that if we can make our decisions and choices from a place of alignment, by default, we're going to be happier
Mm.
and we're going to be much more enriched and fulfilled with what we're actually trying to doing, right? Because there's 8 billion plus people on this planet. And the better we get at technology, the further away we get from each other, the more entrenched we get in AI and, you know, um, artificial intelligence tools, things are going to change. And there's going to be more and more people pulling away. And there's got to be a way back at some point for connection, but it starts with ourselves. And most people aren't willing to do that work, right? Most people don't want to look internally. Most people want to blame their circumstance or have a victim mindset or blame scarcity of money, emotion, love, whatever it may be. But that's not what's really going on.
Mm. So just talk me through, because your point is really interesting. I mean, you want to change yourself and you want to change your business. I mean, just give us a practical sense of something that is different now compared to the way it was pre-COVID, for example. Just give us a flavor of that from a practical point of view. So that makes
Yeah, sure. So something that for me, I think that was challenging because of how I grew up was self-worth, like
right.
understanding my value and what I brought to the table. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of companies and most of them fail, but a few of them succeed, right? So I've learned a few things. But I used to put somebody else's outside value or perceived value on myself over what I knew I either am, was, or could deliver,
Mm.
right? As an outcome. Today, that's completely different. I start with my intrinsic value and I decide if that's something I want to participate in. And then if so, I come up with a structure that I feel is fair and valuable for the outcome that's going to be delivered. But, Paul, what this caused me to do is it caused me to build a framework. And this framework is a 7-part framework. It'll be released in my new book, Resonance.
Mhm.
And the whole point of resonance is understanding that if you're in alignment, and you can figure out which vibration or frequency and which things like blend with you or that you're attracted to or that naturally aggregate towards you, it changes the way that you live and walk throughout this world. So for me, I'll tell you where this came from. When I was young, I loved DJing and music. Like I lived in my headphones. Okay. From there, I went to car audio. From there, I went to automotive, building cars, tuning cars,
Right.
exhaust, all sorts of stuff, building show cars, celebrity vehicles. From there, I went to consumer electronics. From there, I went to LED lighting. And the thing that I saw in across this pathway that was a throughput is energy and frequency and vibration and how I felt about it. And when I started to bring that into my own life about, am I in alignment? Like, is my vibration high? Am I surrounded by low vibration and, energy sucking people? And I kept asking this question as I was getting into COVID, right? Like, I had podcasts too, and I would ask people, what do you do when you don't know what to do?
Right.
And I was never really satisfied with the answers that I was getting is the truth, ask somebody for help or start over. And that's fine. But sometimes you're not 100% sure where you are.
Mhm.
You just know you need to leave there to go somewhere else, right? So I built this 7-part framework that was based off frequency and vibration. And it's noise, static, distortion, which is where most people live, right? And then it's echo, signal, volume, and resonance. So if we talk about noise, static, distortion, it's you can't see anything to be grateful for with noise, right? Or you're getting everybody's input. Don't do that. You're going to fail. You shouldn't do that. You're not talented, blah, blah, blah. That's not safe. You're going to ruin your marriage or your financial
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
situation. Static is friction. It's resistance, if you will, right? Distortion is almost like gratitude tied to an outcome. Like you might be able to see where you want to go, but there's so much noise and so much static that you have this distorted view of what's actually there, right? And like this applies to anything, by the way. This framework applies to your marriage, your relationship with yourself, business,
Mm.
finance, whatever you're doing. And my point of the framework is that if you understand which one of these buckets you're in, you need to figure out how do you get to resonance as fast as possible.
Okay. Now, before you get, and this, we'll talk about that in one second, but I want to ask you something about the language.
Sure.
I mean, it's interesting that you're using, if you like, the language of sound. And you talked about how you spent your, formative years in your headphones. I mean, how has the kind of sound concept, the idea, how has that influenced the way that you've developed this framework? Because you're using that language. Where does that bit come from, other than wearing the headphones? I mean, why particularly that sort of way of thinking about the problem?
Yeah, Tesla has a famous quote that says, if you want to know the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency.
Right.
And that's part of the reason I chose sound. And, I grew up with a biological father he was not around, but he was a brilliant engineer and
Right.
he was an audiophile, right? So there were always speakers being built and, things being put around, at least until I was 5 years old. But then I did a short time as a recording engineer,
Right.
spending time in studios with some very famous artists. And again, to me, like this is my way of it's my first language is how I feel. Like
Mm.
understanding this framework of when do I need to turn the volume up or when do I need to turn the volume down? And am I facing distortion right now? And like, how do I get signal so I can go back to center? Right? Like it's just a different way of helping people navigate emotions.
Mm.
And for me, that became very important because like I didn't grow up with that set of tools. I grew up with all of that stuff compartmentalized in
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
right? So what happened is that translated into business as well, right? So when I was making decisions from noise, static, or distortion, the outcome wasn't usually favorable down the road,
Yeah.
right? That could have been a day, it could have been a year, depending
Yeah.
upon what it was.
Yeah.
But when I started making my decisions, and again, this is the gift COVID gave me, when I really started making my decisions from a place of alignment and understanding what that meant vibrationally to me, like how it made me feel, and did it resonate, yes or no, that was a game changer.
Yeah.
My network changed, my people changed, my outcomes changed. And that's what I'm trying to share,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't want
And
the
let me,
rest of the world.
I mean, and one of the things I like about it when we first talked about it, one of the things that struck me about it is I'm a great believer that the way you approach a problem, it shapes the way the outcome that you get to. And
Yes.
one of the things that's really interesting is that you're approaching problems using this kind of sound metaphor or sound sort of model, if you like. You're approaching problems in a different way, which of course is leading you to different answers, presumably better answers.
Yes.
So I think one of the things that's lovely about this is that it forces people to think a little bit differently about how they approach problems, and therefore they're more likely to get better, different outcomes from it. So I think there's something really interesting about that. Before we get into, I mean, just talk to me, explain in a bit more detail what you mean when you talk about the three things particularly. One, the alignment piece, two, the vibration piece, and three, resonance. When you use those words, what do you mean when you talk about alignment? What's aligned? I mean, just talk us through that.
Yeah. So when I'm talking about alignment, I'm talking about energetic alignment with yourself, with where you are, as a live spiritual being, regardless of what you believe in this universe, right? Like, we're made up of energy, and you feel good or you feel bad, sometimes blah, right in the middle. So if you can figure out where you're at on that scale, and we want to focus more on feeling good,
Yeah.
and right, to feel better, right? So we can be with our partners, our kids, our colleagues, our peers, whatever. And if we can focus on navigating that alignment towards feeling better, right? It's no different than putting an address in a GPS. The GPS picks up your location, and you want to go, I want to go to 123 Elm Street. Boom, put it in, and then you just go, right? You follow the path.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do, is give people a path to follow, because it's very easy to not have a path to follow. We're not
Yeah.
taught this stuff in school,
Yeah.
right? Like, we're not taught what it's like to feel good in school. We are taught, again, we're born, we go to preschool, kindergarten, whatever your grade system is in your country. And then you're a body with a mind that's being guided and told to follow the rules and do the assignments. And, you and I were talking about curiosity prior to recording, and that curiosity piece is important. And
Yeah.
for me, like, I didn't have a much of a childhood growing up, right? So for me, I'm like on this journey to rediscover my inner child and go back to the things that they were curious about, that
Mm.
led them, that they wanted to do. And sound, energy, frequency, vibration, these things were all part of it, which is why I feel like I was always drawn towards audio, towards amazing sounding
Yeah.
race cars and exhaust
Yeah.
systems,
Yeah.
all these different things. And understanding how to tune those and how they work and how they made me feel, right? The difference between, I'll just use a stupid example, like a car with no muffler versus a Ferrari with a finely tuned exhaust or something like
Yeah.
that.
They sound different, don't they?
Very, very
Yeah.
different, but they also make you feel different, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a
Yeah.
different frequency that they're operating on. One's lower, one's higher, and that higher vibration frequency is when we tend to feel better. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, that you just walk into a room and immediately you feel something, right? Or you meet somebody and you feel bad or good, right? Or you vibe with that person. That's what this framework is designed to do in every area of your life, is get you back into alignment with, that's why I'm here with you today. Like, I enjoyed our conversations. I enjoyed listening to your podcast, and I'm like, yeah, man, like, let's do this, Paul.
Yeah.
Very interested in being on the
Oh,
show
oh,
because
oh,
it
I'm
it
glad you enjoyed
aligns
it.
with me.
That's good. So okay, so you lost everything. You're rebuilding. You've also written this book. Give us a sense of the direction of travel. Where do you want to be in 5 years' time, for the sake of this discussion?
Yeah. So for 5 years, I'm looking for full alignment with myself, meaning that I'm no longer at war with who I want to be.
Right.
right? Because again, with the programming that I've had to undo, that was resistance. I was always pushing against myself, getting in my own way, limiting my beliefs, living in scarcity, all of these different things. So, as part of my alignment with me driving towards my resonance, it's to use what I now feel are like my gifts, right? The gifts of my voice, the gifts of my words, the gifts of
Mhm.
giving people tools through my experience that have helped me navigate a better quality life today than I've ever had. And that's phase one, right? Phase two,
Mhm.
5 years from now, is I'm looking for sovereignty for myself. I want to feel ease, peace, make profit. I want to be in alignment. I want to have freedom so that I can do the things I want to do with the people I want to do them,
Mm.
right? And not have the obligations of a 9 to 5 job or the obligations of being controlled by a board, right? Like I've had a couple public companies. It's not something I wish to do again. Taking a company public, fine, buy it, good luck, thank you. But as far as, having that much, I want autonomy. Like that's what I'm looking for. That's important to me, right? Because I felt like I spent the first 50 years of my life figuring out who I am. So now I want to spend the next 50 years living in
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, that seems to me to be a reasonable thing. Well, one of the other things that we talked about previously was you talked about how you'd been able to, you use this language, although it's quite common language. You said, I've been able to 10x some of the things I'm doing.
Mhm.
I mean, just talk us through the impact that the framework has had on your thinking about how you build a business at that scale. Because, I mean, the 10x thing is such an interesting idea. I mean, just talk us through how you see that process.
Yeah, I think most people have an idea, right? Like they want to grow their business, as an example, and oh, I'm doing whatever, $1 million a year, and I want to do 2 million, and they think, oh, that's 100% growth. Okay, sure, it is, but you're going to get to, and honestly, Benjamin Hardy has been a big influence in this. He wrote a book called 10x Thinking with Dan Sullivan of
Mhm.
Strategic Coach, and you know what I took from that book and what I took from my experience is that the same thinking that got you to 1 million
Well,
may get you to 2 million, but it's not going to get you to 10 million,
yeah, yeah, okay.
right? So the theory behind that is we get so caught up in what we're doing that we fail to take a step back. And it's hard, I think, for most people to take a 50,000 foot view, so to speak, and look down and say,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
here's where I am, here's what's happening. Because we're programmed with, I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough money to do that. I don't have the right people to do that. I don't have the time, instead of asking a different question,
Which
right?
would be,
And
what would the different question be?
I think the different question, the first one would be, who could help me do this,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't have to do it all on your own. But also, if I just broke everything and started over, how would I take this business and get it to 10 million versus 1 million?
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
you're
mean,
going to
it's
have two different
interesting.
outcomes.
It's really interesting because if you ask the question, what would be the one thing that would 10x the business? I mean, if you want to make incremental improvements, there are lots of things you can change. If you want to go from 1 to 10, it's probably only one or two really significant things that you've got to change because you've got to completely do it differently, haven't you? I mean, so what I'm interested in is how your framework helps you figure out an answer to that question. Because it's one thing to say I want to go from 1 to 10. It's another thing to figure out how to do it in the context of your business, isn't it? How does your framework, the way you think about this, how does that help you with that challenge?
Sure. Yeah, I can give you examples. So if we take like noise, static, and distortion, those are um, distractions. That's how I look at them, right? They're distractions, which we all have a lot of distractions in life, but specifically in business, there's a lot of
Yeah.
distractions. Managing the day to day, operational issues, cash flow issues, team issues, right? People issues, the human factor, mistakes, whatever it may be. So, if you take those three, okay, out of 7 pieces, and now you also factor in echo, and echo is where you typically see like repeating patterns, right?
Mm.
You fall into the same pattern. So now you take those four, okay, noise, static, distortion, and echo, and you realize that those are distractions. They're causing they're causing havoc. Like, how do you get back to resonance? And how do you lower the volume so you can get a clearer signal with what you're trying to do in the business? So, like, I'll give you an example. One of my companies is a data company. Inside that data company, we had a retail app that did skip tracing. Okay. Someone could go to the website, they could create an account, they'd get some free credits to get started, and then it was just pay as you go. So one of the questions we asked is, how do we 10x this business? Well, A, we need bigger paying clients.
Yeah.
B, that's going to get us to enterprise level of service. What do we need to get to enterprise level of service? Well, we need an API interface, right? In order to do that. So we spent the better part of the last year building out an API, which we launched last week to service those enterprise clients. And now we have a sales team being deployed to service those enterprise clients. So that will 10 or 20 or even 30x our business over the next 12 months just by changing avatars because it changed our pricing model.
Yeah. So so what you're saying is that using your model helps you rethink things in a way that will enable you to, transform the performance.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, clarity equals coherence, right? So the more clear you can be, the more coherence you're going to have. The more coherence you have, the more aligned you are with the outcome that you want. And that outcome is different for everybody, right? Some people want $1 million business. Some people want $1 billion business or $100 million business. There's no wrong answer. It's whatever fits your lifestyle, right? For me, I want a simple business. I want something clean. I don't want to manage a bunch of employees. I've been there. So I'm building things that can scale without me using my guidance with what I'm trying to do. Right.
Okay.
So my model became important to me is, again, instead of asking, what do I do when I don't know what to do? I can identify what bucket I'm in and figure out, okay, like I have a lot of distractions right now. I'm hearing a lot of noise, distortion. I don't have a clear signal. How do I get to clear signal? What do I have to do to figure that out? Do I need to talk to somebody? Do I need to write? Do I need to make a list of things that are going wrong and figure out, well, I can get rid of these three if I just shut off this side of the business, right? And make a lateral move over here. Or do I need to retool? Because usually it's the simple answer that's going to give you the result that you want. But most people are scared. They're scared to get out of the noise because the noise feels like busy work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Most people can't sit in silence with themselves or their business is the truth.
Yeah. No, that's a really interesting point, actually. And I mean, to come back to your point about the noise, I mean, the noise is never ending when you're trying to build a business. I mean, there are a billion things you could do, aren't there? It's always a challenge to figure out what the right thing is. I mean, and I think what I like about your framework is that it helps you figure out that answer a bit quicker. I mean, you can get to it without the framework, but it helps you get there quicker, doesn't it? Which is the point, I think. So what do you, in terms of the book? I mean, why did you decide to put it into a book? What are you trying to achieve with that book? I mean, where are you going with all this?
Yeah, originally I was going to write 7 books, one based on each part of the framework. And I decided that that wasn't the right move. I wanted to give it to everybody in one sitting and then use real life use cases,
Yeah.
sharing my experiences, and also give people action items, right? That they can do as part of the framework to understand, what's causing noise in your life or your business right now. And, the thing is, if you're married and you have kids and you own a business and you work in that business, you have 4 different pieces of noise going on. You have 4 different distortions, 4 different pieces of static, 4 different volumes, right? There's always, always something happening in one of the lanes of your business or your life or, your relationships. The purpose of the book is really simple. It's a framework. It's a framework to help people navigate their life or business. However they want to use it is fine. I give examples of all of that. It's for me, I wrote the book that I wanted to read that I didn't find that existed yet. That couldn't answer the question, what do you do when you don't know what to do?
Yeah, no,
Right?
it's a great question, really, because it forces you to think, doesn't it? Let me ask you though about. I mean, one of the things you said was that you'd also and like probably a lot of entrepreneurs, you've had quite a lot of failures. I mean, you had a lot of businesses, quite a lot of them failed. And there were, there was a small proportion that were very, very successful, but a lot of them failed. What did those failures, or how did those failures contribute to the way that the thinking around this kind of model, this framework?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for failure, I wouldn't have been successful. First of all, failure teaches you failure. I'll tell you, let's go back to the whole being a human being, right?
Mm.
Most of us are not human beings. Most of us are human doings because that's what we were taught, which is the whole reason we're out of alignment in the first place and we're always searching for something. So, taking that concept and that thought and realizing that, okay, I'm going to go and do this thing, and I failed. Over time, that built my self-worth. It built my self-trust. It built my self-concept. It built my resilience. It also, especially since a lot of these were public failures, right? Companies that were here 1 minute and gone the next for bad partnerships, no money, bad model, zero sales,
Yeah.
couldn't deliver the product, bad marketing, and the list goes on and on. It taught me that if I can focus on the impact I'm trying to make and deliver an outcome that is results oriented for whoever the avatar is, that's going to allow me to stay in alignment with what I'm trying to do.
Mm.
Now, that being said, you could have a big audience or a small audience, right? And we could point to any number of companies that exist today, right? Netflix, Apple, Tesla, regardless of what you think about them or you like them, they have all had massive failures. They've all had massive success, but they've all had a lot of noise, distortion, echo, static,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? They've all been thrown under the bus in the the public element, right? Look at Steve Jobs, got kicked out and fired from his own company,
Yeah.
only to come back later and fix the problems. You know, all of that is a contributing factor to you as a person. And if you can digest all of that, and if you can forgive yourself, and if you're able to find your alignment and move forward to whatever the next thing is, you're just going to get better at
Yeah.
what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
going to grow thicker skin. You're going to gain more confidence. You're going to be calmer, right? You're going to manage your nervous system, which most of us can't do.
Yeah. Which is really all about resilience. I mean, we were talking about that earlier as well. And
Yeah.
it's the thing that drives resilience, isn't it?
Yeah. Most people don't start businesses because they're afraid to fail, right? What's my spouse going to think? What's my parents going to think?
Yeah.
What are my cousins going to think? The truth is they're not thinking. They're just doing, right? They're 9 to 5,
Mm.
following what everybody else is doing, keeping up with the Joneses, living beyond their means, doing all of these different things, looking to fill this emptiness void in them. I'm not saying that's everybody, but that's a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that, I mean, to pick up your point there about people working in organizations. I mean, if you're in an organization, let's say you're the HR director or the operations director or whatever, your job is to implement whatever the function is within the context of the organization that you're in. One of
Yes.
the things that's very different about building a business as the CEO is that you've got to build it. You're not implementing within something that somebody else has built. You're actually building it. You've got to pull together the disparate kind of components. That's perhaps not the best way to describe it, but you've got to find a way to draw everything together to focus on the right thing and to make progress, which is a totally different thing from working in an organization. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Because in the organization, you're given a task and your
Mm.
role is to do that task, right? To the best of your ability or to the best of the ability that you're being judged off of with what you're trying to accomplish. It is very different. You see a lot of people that work in organizations and then start a business and don't realize what they got into,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
right? Because they don't understand what's coming and they forgot that they are not just the CEO or the founder, they're the janitor, the marketing director, the accounting manager, the HR director, the engineer, right? The
Yeah.
quality control, the logistics coordinator. I mean, Paul, I spent 30 years manufacturing products, 450 different products in 12 different verticals. And I will take what I'm doing today. That taught me a lot, but I will take what I'm doing today over that any day of the week. I
And
do
why?
not miss.
Why do you say that? Because what you just described, 450 products in 12 different verticals, that sounds pretty interesting too.
It was interesting. I learned a lot, but like if I'm in the digital space right now, or I have digital products, I'll use my data company, right? We're delivering a digital product that's a tool. We don't have shipping issues or logistics issues, right? Like we don't have inventory issues. There's just, it depends what you want. Like for me, I want a smarter business. And going back to your question, like I want autonomy and alignment in what I'm doing. That means I don't want to manage all of these other things that I
Yeah,
have to,
yeah.
right? When you think about producing a product, there are so many parts to producing a product. Now, I produced a lot of cool products, and I'm very grateful for that experience because it, again, made me who I am today. But I realized like there's a simpler way to conduct and do business that allows me to do more over here. I don't miss 18, 20, 24-hour days at the office or in the factory when things break, or having a couple containers fall off a container ship in the middle of the ocean,
Mm.
right? Like there's a lot of things that you got to go through that are very, very painful. And again, I'm grateful for the lessons, but today I try to take what I learned and implement a different model that gives me more freedom to do what I want.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I do totally get that. And seeing as you've mentioned what you learned, let's just talk about some of the things that you've learned. So, in terms of you as the CEO, what were there any kind of critical moments that shaped the way you think about doing the CEO's job when you look back? Have there been moments where you've thought, maybe I need to do it a completely different way? I mean, have you had those sorts of experiences?
Yeah. Um, I think because I grew up in a very like blue collar household, it was always that mentality of you have to do it yourself if you want it done right. And no one's going to do it as good as me. Right. And if you're the owner of the company, a lot of people hope that people are going to take ownership as
Mm,
an employee, but that's usually not how it works. You're lucky
mm,
if someone gets the 50 or 70%. But what I realized when I was in the electronics business specifically is that if I'm the CEO and I have a sales team and I have a purchasing team and I have a marketing team and I have a logistics team, my job is to create the systems that allow all of these people to do their job to the best of
yeah,
their ability
yeah,
with the least
yeah,
amount of friction,
yeah.
right? So if I'm starting a company today from ground up and day one is just me, it's like, okay, what am I building? How am I getting there? Can I prove the concept? Once I prove the concept, who's my next hire? My next hire is an admin that supports everything I do to take work off my plate,
Mm,
right? Once that's done, now I'm going into systems mode. I need systems and as much automated as possible to take care of all of these other things to free up the admin's time so she can cater more to me. Then at some point, I'm going to have a COO, an operations person that's going to manage the systems and take those off my plate. Right. And then as we scale sales, how we have to spend more on ads for marketing, as we have to buy inventory, if we have to buy inventory, or deploy digital assets if it's a digital inventory product. Whatever that may be, those systems have to work and scale because I want to keep, and especially in today's age of AI and technology, I want to keep my team as small as possible to A, take out human error and leverage the systems,
yeah.
but B, be as profitable as possible for both myself and my team with what we're trying to build together with what we're doing. Like business can just be done so differently today, specifically the last 5 years, let
Mm,
alone 10, 20, 30 years ago. Right. So I think the one thing that I really carried forward, let's just say over the last 30 years from where I started in the product space to now is that, resistance and friction happens when balls get dropped. So if you can create systems and install those systems to avoid the balls being dropped, I don't care what business you're in. I don't care whether you're in finance, financing multi-million or billion-dollar deals,
mm,
whether you have a podcast and you're recording, then editing, then producing and, distributing to the channels. If you can create a system that allows that to go smoothly, that can be repeated and scaled, your life is going to be much simpler,
Yeah.
and you're going to have
Yeah.
way more money and be way less frustrated with everybody and everything involved in the process.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I certainly share that. And your point about, it's the dropping of the ball that causes the problem. I mean, I think that's a really good way of describing it, actually, because it's my experience has been that, just when you think things are going right, something falls over.
Yeah.
Which is why running a business is never a never-endingly interesting thing, but it also comes with lots of headaches, doesn't it? That's and the bigger the business gets, the bigger the headaches get, which is my experience. Let me ask you about the not dropping the ball, but making mistakes. One of the things I love about entrepreneurs is they're generally pretty quick to identify when they've done something stupid. Because if they don't fix the problem, they end up going out of business in the long run. So they're really good at that. I mean, unlike some political parties, for example, they never admit they've ever done anything wrong. Entrepreneurs are not like that. They're very quick to say, screwed that up, figured out, I'm going to do something different to fix the problem or whatever. What would you say is the biggest mistake that you've made, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I think one of my close friends on a podcast said this to me, that he used for his team: make new mistakes.
Okay.
Right? Because the problem isn't making mistakes. That's not the problem. We're all going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
We're all human, especially if you're creating something that's never been created before, right? You're going to put it out there or launch a product, and we're all going to make assumptions based upon what we think we know, not realizing that, I'll go back to a Henry Ford quote, right? If you would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster
That's the
horses,
horse. Yeah.
right? Say no different than Steve Jobs with the iPhone, right? When that was released, and his whole, keynote on that. So I think that if I could go back and you ask me what I learned, I would learn to realize that I need to make new mistakes, right? So, but that goes back to my framework, is that like echo is about repeating patterns, right?
Yeah.
About that
Yeah.
Groundhog's Day mentality of doing the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and
Expecting a
expecting
different
a
outcome.
different result.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what happens,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can assume I know my avatar and then start deploying marketing to that avatar and get zero response,
Yeah.
all based on assumptions, versus me actually asking them, hey, what problem do you have?
Yeah.
And it seems like my business or my company or my product or my tool can help you fix that, right? Would you be interested in that? Yes. Okay, great. If I build a demo, will you try it? Yes, great. If you try it and it works, will you buy it? Yes, great. And then go and do that. And then go to the masses, right? Versus a lot of people are just, I'll take AI as an example, because that's a great example. We're still humans on this earth. And my data company, we have 2 trillion data points across 200 data sets. And we do enrichment, we do property data, we do a bunch of different data. But the goal is, how can we help somebody get better contact information for the person they want to talk to, right? Verified mobile numbers, verified email address, verified ownership of a property, all that type of stuff. So there's literally, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of AI companies popping up left and right. Like, we
Yeah.
do this, we do that, we do this, we do that. We can automate this, we can, deploy this. But none of them still have the data of how to get to Paul Essery, right? Like, they still need that data. So when I got in the data space, my question is what is the lowest level of data that I need to have to help businesses and people?
Mhm.
And look, we use AI. We have AI tools, right, that help us build our products. But we're trying to connect to humans, just like everybody else who owns a CRM or a real estate company or a title company or a mortgage company or a tow truck company or a credit company or an insurance company. They're looking for data to connect to that person,
Mm.
right? That's the space that I want to play in, versus just building another AI tool and then going to get 10,000 SaaS subscribers and then having an exit. That's great. For whoever does that, that's amazing. If you identified a use and you can do that.
Mm.
I was looking for the lowest level common denominator of what the opportunity was, right?
Mm.
So now we've made new mistakes, right? We sold 1Z, 2Z, and now we're moving to enterprise level API integration with a whole bunch of products that aren't on the market right now. But our customer base is every AI user,
Mm.
right? Or every AI founder, I should say,
Mm.
that has a SaaS company that needs data enrichment for their database.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the other thing that strikes me about what you're saying is that, I mean, it seems to me that the critical thing there is asking the right question.
Always. You ask the wrong question, you're going to get a different
Get the
answer,
wrong
right?
answer. Yeah, which I
You
think,
get the wrong
which is
answer.
a really interesting. I mean, your earlier point about, what do I do when I don't know what to do? Is it's just it's a really interesting question because it forces that what you're saying there is that you asked a different question, so you came to a different set of conclusions, and you've identified a different space to work in, which seems to me to be a very powerful way to approach that. Let me just ask you about the flip side to making mistakes. Um, what are the things that you enjoy the most? I mean, whenever we've spoken, you come across as really enthusiastic, and I mean, what is it that you enjoy most about what you're doing? I mean, building a business. I mean,
Yeah,
why does it make you feel better?
I'm a creator at heart. Like I'm very
Right.
much a creator and a builder. I definitely feel like I don't want to say if I could do it over again because I wouldn't change anything, right? But I have a strong engineering capability. And I've
Mhm.
always been kind of like half engineer, half marketer with the companies that I've built, right? Like sales were never my strong suit. Finance was never like what I wanted to focus on, but I always loved the engineering and the marketing component, right? Like how do we build this incredible widget? And then how do we go and show people how it helps them, how it fixes a problem or,
Mm.
is a solution for them. So I give this example. I'm like 0 to 60. I love the startup founder phase, right? 0 to 60, boom. Once you get to 60, that's 60 to 100, which is where you have stability, growth, install systems. I want other people to do that.
Yeah.
I like creating. That's where my heart is. And that's part of why, like, Paul, I'm very passionate about this book, Resonance, and this framework and getting it out there because I feel like it will help people build
Mm.
better lives, better businesses, better products, everything in that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, and that comes across. And what is it about that makes you most proud? I mean, you've listed a list of things there. What is the thing that really makes you feel good?
Uh, Honestly, that I'm still standing today. And like,
And why do you say that? That's an interesting response. Why do you say
well,
that?
like Winston, Winston Churchill has a quote that I'm going to butcher, but it's something about like going from failure to failure without no loss of enthusiasm.
Yes, I've heard that quote. Yeah.
Right. And like,
Yeah.
that's how I feel. I
Right.
feel
Okay.
like I'm still, regardless of all of the crap, the
Yeah.
trash, the ups, the downs, the losses, the rebuilding phases. Like my enthusiasm to build something beautiful is
Yeah.
stronger than ever,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like that's important to me. And I mean that across every dynamic in my life, my relationship with my wife, my kids, my businesses, my business partners. I just, you know, I think most of us spend life struggling to live. And that was a decision that came through COVID of me being done with that. I'm
Mm.
done with that. I want to spend the rest of my years. I want more life in my years, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's interesting the way you describe it, you see, because what you're saying is you can decide to do that. I mean, I often think people get locked into this is how it is rather than this is how I want it to be or how it could be,
Yep.
which is all about what's in here, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. It really is a choice, right? But you have to be so sick of your own BS that you choose
Yeah,
to to make that conscious choice.
yeah,
And there's effects, there's pain. People will not agree with you. People won't like your choice. Your circle of friends is
yeah,
going to change,
yeah,
right? Like there's a lot of risk to making
yeah,
that decision, but I have found that the reward outweighs the
Yeah.
risk.
Yeah. No, I can see that. And one last question. I mean, the next bit of the journey, what excites you about the next bit, the thing that's going to be, start to happening now?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back to alignment, being in alignment with myself, thus attracting the right people and opportunities that I feel like I could have a joyful experience with.
Yeah. What was behind my question? I mean, I accept your answer, but what was behind my question was the book. I mean, tell me what you're going to do with the book.
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
actually is it published yet, or is it due to be
It's
published?
it's not published yet. It will be published probably in the next 3 months, is my guess. The book will be published. There'll be a podcast called Resonance X that pairs with that, along with a newsletter on LinkedIn.
Right.
And then I'm lining up some TEDx talks.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean,
I'm excited.
yeah, no, I think I can see that. I mean, I look forward to hearing about it because it sounds really, really
I'll
interesting.
send you a copy, Paul.
I look forward to it. Yeah. Thank you, Ray, for taking a bit of time to come and
Thank you very
talk
much.
about
It was
it.
my privilege. Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate it. I mean, it's a fascinating. I love one of the things I love about. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people on the podcast. I love people that think differently about problems because they come to different ways. They develop different ways forward, and I love the way that you've approached it in a way that kind of helps people get to new and different answers, which I think is lovely, and I really appreciate that. And it's great to hear that it's paying off, and it's for you, and it's great to hear that the book will be published and it'll help other people. I mean, that sounds really exciting, and I can see why you'd be proud of that.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, see you soon.
Thanks, Paul. Take care.
Bye bye.